Hello, Karen and Lo. Good evening. All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Tuesday Together Talk. I'm Reverend Rebecca Burrow. I am the founder and CEO of Building Reconciliation, Inclusion, Diversity, and Gender Equity. And Tuesday Together Talk was actually birthed out of Bridge. Bridge is who we are to our friends and our allies in the movement of equity and inclusion and social justice. I want to thank you guys for joining us this evening for this part two, y'all. Can the Me Too movement and WAP era coexist? Tonight, we're going to dig a little further into race, culture, and Me Too and WAP. I am more than happy to have my I call her my sidekick, y'all. My sidekick, Carrie Y. Hepburn Brown. Now I know that most of you out there have seen Carrie around here before, but I don't think I've ever given her a proper introduction. So tonight I want to just take a minute to let you all know a little bit who Carrie is. All right, I hope that's okay with you all. So let me find my notes, Carrie, because you have this extensive bio. I couldn't remember it. Okay. Carrie Y. Hepburn Brown is the CEO and principal consultant at Onyx Strategic Consulting, LLC, a boutique firm committed to creating a more equitable world. In this role, Carrie works with organizations to advance racial justice and develop and execute strategies to reduce health disparities. Additionally, she designs and implements impactful programs, coordinates engaging events, cultivates meaningful relationships, facilitates effective meetings, and delivers compelling presentations and trainings. Previous experience includes managing a local nonprofit focused on improving community health and wellness, working as the project director for a large multi-year federal grant program, supporting a community consortium, coordinating a countywide coalition, and implementing youth development programs. Prior to joining the nonprofit sector, Carrie was employed as a business consultant for a worldwide management and consulting firm. She has a bachelor's degree in chemistry, molecular biology, and a master's degree in environmental science, both from Florida A&M University. All right. In addition to her professional commitment, Carrie is actively involved in her community. She serves as vice president for the Homeowners Association Board and mentors young professionals. She enjoys traveling, event planning, and scrapbooking. Welcome, Carrie, to Tuesday Together Talk.
And is a devoted wife and mother. I forgot that line.
Yeah, I was going to, say something about that, but I said it's not my place to, get in folks' business.
That's the professional version. It's the personal professional version. You know the little line.
Right.
I'm so excited to be here. I love being on Tuesday Together Talk in general, but this conversation, I am like geared up and ready for it. I'm just, even as we were like getting prepped, I'm like, I just found some other stuff that I'm gonna bring into the conversation. So
all right, well, we're gonna get ready for this important conversation, but just like last week, I want to remind the people that we can't nearly begin to cover this subject in just two evenings. Because there are numerous perspectives and contexts that must be taken into consideration while having this discussion. But our goal this evening, ladies and gentlemen, is to compel you to think about and share in the comments, okay, your perspectives. We want you to be a part of this conversation. We need your voice because your voice helps broaden the discussion and it gives us food for thought. Please be mindful, though, that this conversation is being recorded and live streamed. So if you don't feel comfortable sharing something to the world, then I prefer that you just don't share it this evening. If you want to send me a message later, feel free to do that. Also, the conversation is about a sexual expression and sexual violation. And although we have, I guess, edited ourselves or put a G-rated PG rating on our conversation, you may still want to view this video before you let your children be a part of it. And so, and that's up to you and your household, but I just want to give you opportunity to think about that as we go into this conversation. So can the Me Too movement and the WAP era coexist? Now, last week we didn't dig too much into Me Too. So I want us to, we'll start our conversation there. But before we start there, I just want to recap some of last week because those ladies brought it last week, didn't they? Amanda, Dorothea, Yolanda, Jerry Lee. Oh my gosh, it was so good to be in conversation with women from different vantage points and worldviews and their perspectives. And perhaps, you know, maybe if you're in the audience, you didn't agree with their perspective. I want to know that tonight. Share that. Don't be shy about it. Okay. I had some folks to contact me later and they were like, well, I didn't agree with anybody. Well, good. Share that. I want to know. So, but 3 questions we asked them last week. And the first was, as we talked about WAP being called the epitome of female empowerment, I asked the ladies, do you believe overt sexual expression should be considered a form of women's empowerment? And we got different answers from the ladies. Some of them said, you know, no, and most of them said yes, but with a little disclaimer to their yes. The second question we asked was the behaviors of victims who have been sexually violated are often scrutinized and used to victim shame or blame. Do the power of sexual expression clash with the definition of sexual violation? That was our second question. And the third question, probably the most controversial one of the night, was power is at the core of victimizing or violating others. Is the power of the P the counterpart to male power, privilege, and patriarchy? All right, those were our 3 questions last week. If you want to know what the women said, you need to go back and view that video, which you can find at Reconciliation and Equity on Facebook, because you need to hear what those women said. And listen, men that are watching tonight, I had some brothers contacting me too, and they had some good things to say about the conversation. I just want to thank you all once again for coming and sharing with us. Before we move forward, Carrie, do you want to add what you thought about last week's conversation?
I mean, I think you underscored all the things. It was engaging, it was interesting, it was compelling, all of those things. I love, sort of, to your point, the variety of perspective. And and again, I cannot reiterate, if you did not hear it, you don't need to hear it in order to participate and enjoy tonight, but you want to hear that conversation. It is well worth it. And I think the start of a whole different set of dialogue that we have not been having in our community. So I'm excited to continue, not necessarily that conversation, because we can't do that justice, but to keep the energy going around the topic.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Carrie. Well, listen. So I think last week we left off in talking about the idea of co-opting, as you like to put it, Carrie. But that can be actually, we were talking about the Black African American women or Black women's bodies, and how they were at one point, you know, not acceptable from society standards of being beautiful because of our big derrieres and our lips. And then somewhere somebody made a little tape with the boyfriend and it went famous or it went viral. Well, they didn't go viral back then. I don't know what it went. They found it. Okay. and and all of a sudden, the big derriere and the big lips became this thing. And so we stopped with that conversation. I want to pick up on that tonight. But before we do, I want you, Carrie, to talk about what it means related to the Me Too movement and how that movement started off in what most people don't know, 2006. 2006, that movement
Yes.
started. And I'm going to let you go into what happened from 2006 and when folks finally woke up to the idea of the Me Too movement.
Yes. So I'm gonna jump right in. The way I describe this is co-opting what is ours and what is beautiful.
Mhm.
So, there's in recent years there's been this term cultural appropriation, and we know that some folks have different perspectives about that. Some folks got into some internet trouble about their views and their responses. But I think it's important, as you said, the Me Too movement really started out with a Black woman named Tarara Burke in 2006. She was working locally in her community, at camps and with young women who had been sexually violated, sexually abused. And the reality is, let's just say this. Let's just put a little asterisk here. In my experience in our community, and when I say our, I'm talking about Black community. Um, that's a prevalent thing, that people are, particularly young girls, are molested, abused, violated, depending on your perspective and how you grew up and how you classify. And that information is either kept quiet, not acted on, or a combination of those things. The victim is meant to, is told that, that's you lying, they're not believed, you're creating trauma, all of those negative things. And so, as someone who had some experience in that, really wanted to provide this safe haven for these young girls who were having these issues, and have been doing this work for a number of years, sort of under the radar. But with this, really, with this phrase, like, it happens to everybody, and was really sort of showing her solidarity with these young ladies, that you're not the only one, and to help them take power back from their violators and perpetrators, that you can own this. And even as you and I were just talking about this tonight, it's like, but when this went full scale is when a white man by the name of Harvey Weinstein in 2017 was actually accused, and Alyssa Milano, who I actually used to like from Who's the Boss? Yes. Back in the day, y'all know old Alyssa. I don't know about new Alyssa. I don't know her, but I know the old Alyssa. Said something about it, tweeted it, and it became like this book, this really big initiative, particularly with white celebrities, actresses primarily. And then we talked about, there are a number of people who went down after that: Matt Lauer, Charlie Rose, Jeffrey
Epstein.
Epstein.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um,
Al Franken.
Al Franken, right? So there are all of these people, other folks who have come along and now been. But I do want to get back to Matt though. I had issues with him because he made Ann Curry. He made Today Show get rid of Ann Curry. I'm just going. But listen,
You're still salty about that,
I'm
huh?
still salty about that, y'all. I don't know if you all knew Ann Curry. She was fat. I don't even watch the Today Show anymore. Anyway, we're gonna come back to that. But this because I think that's important.
Mhm.
This was really abuse, even though we didn't know that it was sexual abuse. It was abuse against a woman of color who did not have the same protection that, say, Katie Couric did. Now, I respect Katie Couric as a journalist as well, but she didn't get nearly the same type of support. And my point is, let's get back on track. And the Me Too movement is that these little Black and brown girls who
Yes.
have been violated and abused for years,
Mhm.
no one called it a thing. No one paid a lot of attention to it until suddenly, oh, all these poor little fragile white women. I mean, not to be funny, like, yes, there is a sense of fragility, right? But the reality is, what makes your pain any greater than my pain?
Yeah.
Gabrielle Union wrote a book, I'm gonna need more wine, or we're gonna need more wine, something about wine. And
Mhm.
if you read the book, you will know. And I from reading her story, it has given me a very different perspective of her. Folks have talked about her as an actress and sort of her stance, and I recognize a lot now, understanding that, and she's very honest that she was a victim. She was raped when she was in high school, and how that impacted her to the point that, you know, when she's in the public, she's still very skittish and looks around. And when people approach her as a celebrity to get her autograph, like she's very protective, and people think that she's being a bee, or, you know, all kinds of other things because of her actions. Like, you never understand what people are going through and why they are in the situation that they're in. So all of that to say that our Blackness has been co-opted in many, many ways. Tonight we're going to talk about two of those. One is the Me Too movement, and the other, to your point, is how what has always been beautiful about Black women, our big voluptuous bodies, these big lips, this big booty, was not seen acceptable until other folks made it look good. So I just went on a little rant. Sorry. As you
Well,
can
at
tell,
least,
I feel a lot of passion about that
at
one.
least made it look good. Now, let me be very clear here. Carrie and I are not trying to differentiate between victimization, be it Black woman or white woman.
Yes, yes.
When victimization happens, it's regardless of the color. What we are trying to do is provide the race and cultural context to how victimization can be perceived
Yes.
by individuals in society when it impacts a Black woman, and for that matter, when the alleged perpetrator might be a Black man. Now, as we were talking about the appropriation piece, I read something the other day that was very powerful. I can't even remember where I saw it, but it said we have to reclaim our appropriation, or we have to reappropriate. So instead of being concerned about folks adopting or adapting, we have to actually reclaim. And we do that by owning who we are and from whence we came. That's a whole nother conversation for another day. But since you brought it up, I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Look, I'm gonna come back for that conversation because
Okay.
I got some thoughts on that.
So make note of that. But before we even started this conversation, Carrie, I was reading an article that just blew me away, and it was talking about the idea of what happens when a Black male, is accused of false rape. And so we know that throughout our society, that has been an issue for a long time. You know, the most, probably the most historical was Emmett Till, who wasn't, he was accused of groping and whistling, okay, and saying something. And so,
Accused, not found guilty of.
right. And accused by a woman that, of course, now, later on said that it never happened. So, you know, she said it never happened, but, you know, that was years later. I think it was like in 2000 and maybe 5 or something. But one of the reasons why I want to dive into this is because I think as we look at the Me Too movement and WAP, we have to think about what it means within the context of being a Black man in America. Now, let me, as I do as a preacher, I'm gonna pause here parenthetically for a minute, okay? Okay. So y'all know that preachers, we do that from time to time. I need to pause here because what we saw happen in Minnesota, and because I lived in Minnesota briefly, I know the streets of Minnesota, I know that area. What we saw happen the other day with a young man that was stopped for whatever reason and had a misdemeanor warrant or whatever, and then ends up dead, ends up murdered. Although murder and rape are different, we still know that part of what happens in the minds of people that encounter Black men in certain situations, oftentimes they end up with the same results. They are found guilty without being, without any opportunity for being in a court of law. And so the reason why I think that's important, because as we talk about Me Too, we cannot talk about the Me Too movement without thinking about how it impacts African American or Black males. We can't. There was a quote I read today that I thought was so powerful. It says, since slavery, Black sexuality has been stereotyped as wild, uncontrollable, and even criminal. The other thing that came out of this article, and I'm going to put the article in so y'all won't accuse me of plagiarizing. At one point in our history, there became a new law or in Jim Crow South, or white folks referred to rape as the new Negro crime. Okay, so the new Negro crime created the mythology that Black men rape white women. Now, I think that's important for this conversation, because we have to look at the Me Too movement from a holistic position of knowing that Black men can often be accused, and not only be accused, also found guilty without it being true. And sometimes they're just being accused by, like the young little lady, I think it was Iowa somewhere, that accused a Black man. I think it was 3 of them she accused, said that she had been raped, then and found out she had been sitting in class all day. She said she don't know why she made up the story. You remember the woman that killed her kids so she could go be with her lover and blamed it on the Black man? You remember the other, the list goes on now. You remember the white man that shot and killed his wife and unborn baby and blamed it on the
Yes,
Black
I
man?
do remember that one.
So although in some of those situations we're talking about murder, the other we're still talking about the victimization of Black men by the stereotypes. And I wanted to have that conversation, and I want you to add whatever you need to add to this conversation before we walk into the next door.
So I think that you bring up a really huge piece of this, and I just want to lightly mention something else, as this picks up something that Dorothea shared last week, which is some additional history that I actually was not as aware of as I thought I was, about the sex plantations. And I bring that up because Black men particularly have, I would say, a really tenuous space, in that they are often blamed as the violators. Not that they aren't in some circumstances, so I don't want to absolve anybody. However, we have not fully acknowledged and addressed that they themselves were violated and what that did. So not only were their families, their women, their children pulled from them, then they themselves were violated and used for pleasure. So what do you do with that, where you can't actually trust either side? If you talk to a woman, she may accuse you. If you talk to a man, he may try you, those kinds of things. So I think, to your point, we are not saying that there are not victims of all colors and creeds. We are saying that in the cultural context, it is more complex, and I think that's the point that you are lifting up. I think I want to go here now, and if we need to pull it back, we can talk about it. But this also brings up the other piece for me that sort of was the genesis of one of the reasons why we got into this conversation. You and I both have both male and female children, and the level of which you want to protect your children is the same, whether they're male or female. yet the responsibility is very different, because just like I would never want my son to victimize anybody, I also don't want him to be falsely accused. And I think there is, in this whole matter, really, there are so many areas of sub sort of themes that we've yet to explore. So I think that's probably a part three with some men to talk about their perspectives on that. um but I think it's, you on mute. I
I
think it's
am.
worth I think it's worth just sort of acknowledging that we realize the other
Yeah.
thing. And this is, so, as we talk about Me Too movement being an opportunity for women to stand and share and take uh, reclaim their voice for being abused and violated, and it is important. I think of WAP as as the extension of that on the other end, because it is an attempt to stand and claim your voice and take on ownership of what you believe to be yours, which is rightfully is your body.
Yeah.
And the question I continue to ask is, where is the line?
Yeah. Yeah.
um I was at a stage in my life where I was like, I hated this double stereotype
Mm-hmm.
of men being able to be as promiscuous as they wanted
Mm-hmm.
to, but being congratulated,
Right.
and women being immediately shamed, right, for whatever.
Yeah.
And and like, how confusing is that?
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know how to reconcile that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I make that connection to the plight of Black men in the middle of this, being
Yeah.
squarely as accused perpetrators and some actual perpetrators, and also being the victims
Mhm.
themselves. Where is their Me Too movement? Where does it go?
Yeah.
And I also think about, as someone who believes very strongly in female empowerment and believes that I should have the right to wear what I want to wear and carry myself the way I carry myself, recognizing that we still live in a environment in which, despite everything that I believe to be true,
Mhm.
how people perceive me will change based on what I'm wearing and how I show up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as we have slowly transitioned, I want to touch on one thing real quick, because you mentioned it. The idea of my son, my brothers, my cousin. Man, I need to hear from y'all. And I see my cousin is in this conversation now. I see you in this conversation. I need to hear from you all in this. But when I think about my brothers, my son, my husband, not even giving a fair shake, not being, given justice based on someone's accusation, that frightens me. That absolutely frightens me. And a lot of that has nothing to do with their character at all. It has everything to do with the color of their skin, and more than likely the texture of their hair. um, but so that frightens me. And so as I think about Me Too movement, I just want to make sure that we think about it from a cultural race context when it comes to Black men and what has happened to Black men in this country. Now, I am not trying to suggest that all Black men are innocent. Okay, that is not what I'm saying at all. So if you are hearing that, you are hearing me way wrong. What I am trying to say is, I want to make sure when those accusations are made, that Black men are afforded the same opportunity and avenue for justice as any other man in this
Absolutely.
country.
Absolutely.
And I also want to say that I don't want for justice to be based on the color of the woman's skin either. I don't want Black men then to be put in a situation or pigeonholed, as we used to say, just because the woman that has accused them is white. Whereas when a Black woman comes in that situation, they're not always given that benefit of the doubt. So we have a lot of work, I think, still to do in this particular area, so we can understand all the different nuances and all the layers that occur when it comes to violation. But I'm going to transition us, Carrie, because I don't want to miss. It's 6:32 already. See, I don't want to miss this opportunity to go back to something as we were talking about the co-opting. Now, listen, I want to talk about WAP now. I got to go into WAP because I told you what happened when I was on social media after Cardi and Meg the Stallion, after they performed at the Grammys. Social media went crazy, the conservatives went crazy, and everybody was losing their mind. Now, granted, I'm gonna be honest with you, I ain't for the lyrics. I don't like the lyrics. I don't think there's anything cute about the lyrics. That's their lyrics, okay? I did not see their performance live on the Grammys. I had to go back and watch it because everybody was talking about it. So I gave them another view as a result of everybody talking about it. And I was not, I guess maybe I'm a little old timey or old fashioned or whatever. There are some things I think need to just be kept between folks. And what I say to my husband and the privacy of my home is nobody's business. And I ain't got to go and tell y'all about what I say to him or brag, about any of those things.
Right.
But Cardi did come out with this song, her and Meg Thee Stallion, and it has become a huge hit.
Yeah.
But I want us to know that this is not unique to Cardi.
Nope.
I'm gonna always do a little bit of research. There was a Madonna, okay? And I know they made a big deal about Madonna during that time and they got over it. And perhaps it was because when she came out with a couple of her little songs that we didn't have the social media. I think I don't even know if we was really talking too much about the internet at that point. But
I don't think so.
Okay, now wait a minute, you try to act like I'm real old. But and so Britney Spears, there have been other people that have made songs and had videos about those songs. And what happens is culture adapts. It adapts. And so there's been a whole lot of current songs that are out there made by women that has not gotten the attention of this. And granted, the lyrics are really explicit for my little ears. They're explicit, which is why I'm not sharing it on Tuesday Together Talk. Y'all go back and read the lyrics yourself. Matter of fact, Niall, I know he went and he didn't know the lyrics to the song, and so I think they caught him off guard when he actually read them. But what I want us to understand about the whole WAP piece is that those lyrics, that song is part of the fiber of this current generation. So on the one hand, where we sit and talk about our sexuality and being private and all of that stuff, there's a current generation that has found their sexual, I guess, courage. They're, in expressing themselves sexually. And I need to know, as we're talking about Me Too, and we're also talking about, how this is framed or shaped, this conversation that we're having. How do we navigate these worlds where on the one hand we're asking our young boys, our young men, and our young women to respect, but in the other breath we are also saying I have the freedom to say whatever I want and tell you how great my body part is, the power of my pee and everything else, and all the other lyrics that are in there that I can't even say on this show because they'll probably censor me and
Facebook gonna take you down.
right, because they're that. So how do we grapple with these two things where we're saying respect on the one hand, and at the same time we're saying I have the right to express myself and to tell you how great my parts is. So for example, Carrie, if you know you out listening to the song and dancing to it and everything else and you feeling it and all that, and then a young guy whisper in your ear and say, yeah, you know, I caught what you was saying or whatever.
You know the fight. You know the fight.
I ain't been out in so long. I don't know how they do it.
Just the idea. I'm gonna fight.
It's so long. I don't know how they say it no more. Maybe my cousin Gregory or now can help me.
Yeah, y'all let us know. What do they say? How they approach? I'm gonna look at my wife.
But there is still. Am I disrespecting you by acknowledging what you just said?
Okay, so all of this, and I want to add another layer to this conversation because here is another piece. So I believe we can be assured that the coordinators of it was the Grammys, right? Yeah. It was the Oscars,
Grammys. Mm-hmm. Not the Oscars.
Right, Oscars. Hey, but Hard Out Here for a Pimp won an Oscar nomination, so let's just keep it in perspective, right? Like anything is possible. Yeah, I remember that year that happened. Anyway, my point is, you cannot tell me that I'm mad by this thing. Yeah. You cannot tell me that they did not expect that type of response. Mm-hmm. Because the reality is, out of everything you said, I still come back to sex sales. They used it for their benefit. Now, Cardi and Megan, like, you know, and maybe they saw it as an opportunity to share the message. So I'm not sure where they saw it, but I believe the producers of the Grammy saw some dollars because they knew that it would incense some people and lead to, okay, we got something to talk about. So that's one piece that I want to just plug there. I also want to bring up, as you were talking about the timeline, let's throw Nicki Minaj in that. Mm-hmm. Where, you know, there was a point where Nicki Minaj was said to be the raciest female rapper on the scene. And Lil' Kim. I mean, right? So the other part of that, though, is they have gotten progressively more explicit. Mm-hmm. And here is my concern, because it is what you said. For young people, the shock value, right? So now the incident we're gonna open this up to with Justin and Janet, because it wasn't just Janet.
It was really Justin.
It was really Justin, has created yeah. We ain't gonna go there. What is a 3-second delay in any live performance from here into eternity because of that slip? So at that point, something as simple, not that it is simple, but a nipple slip was what we referred to it as, what it became popular as, created this rift across the country. Mm-hmm. Now you can say lyrics publicly and play them in any venue that would be like, Lucy and Ricky couldn't even sleep in the same bed. Yeah. I mean, so I struggle with where is the line, because I do think I should have a right to own my body, to use it and express whatever it is. I think there is a limit to how explicit I personally want to be. However, that should not dictate how you perceive me. But the reality is, it to me is similar to, we live in this, we breathe the same air. We breathe in racism, and we breathe in sexism. And what we don't talk about nearly enough is the patriarchy and this masochistic society. I said this, and we talked about this in last month. Oh yeah, we were together last month for Women's History Month. No matter how qualified Hillary was, she was never able to move forward because more than anything, we are sexist and racist.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I even answer the question, because that just gets me.
Well, no, you didn't answer my question, and that's what. Look, but I understand it's probably not a question that can be answered, because my question really is about what happens when the young male. Now, listen, all he's doing now is whispering in the woman's ear.
I think it depends on what women he talked to.
You know, so because she is up there dancing and singing the lyrics, and he says to her, "Oh yeah, I hear you, yeah."
What is it? How you know,
but now she's offended because he is saying, "Oh yeah, I hear you." So how do we handle these two? And now he is an alleged perpetrator because he's only vibing with what she has given him. So how do we deal with these things? We got to grapple with this, and we have to stop ignoring this conversation because too many young men are confused about the boundaries. We at one point, I remember we had no means no, and that's still the case. No means no. But if you're not even asking that question and you're just saying, "Oh, I hear you, I hear you," now you have entered my personal space and I'm offended. So we got to figure this thing out. Now, let me read some of these comments, Carrie, because these folks is having a little something to say. Darlene says, "Wow, powerful conversation that my sons need to hear. I worry so much about them being falsely accused, especially by a white woman. They are traditionally the women who have no boundaries and throw themselves all over them."
Not to mention fantasies. That's a whole nother conversation we're not going to get into.
Fetishize, Darlene also said, "Yes, the lyrics are downright degrading, in my opinion." Now says the lyrics shows how this generation think. Now I can't agree with you on that, because we have some women, y'all was giving Betty Wright a hard time about some stuff she was saying. So I don't even know if it's a generational thing, other than the fact that there were songs that wasn't played on the radio and all that stuff, and we as children didn't have access to because our parents wouldn't let us listen to it. But I think that the lyrics are more graphic, if that makes sense, because nothing is left to the imagination anymore, even when it comes to television. Like you said, Ricky and Lucy were husband and wife. We talking about Ricky and Lucy Ricardo, y'all. I Love Lucy show. They were husband and wife. They slept in a separate bed. The Brady Bunch, My Three Sons, him and his wife, all those people, we didn't see them interacting or whatever. So you had to use your imagination. I think one of the people that probably took it a little further was Alfred Hitchcock. You watch some of his old movies, then you start thinking, well, Hitchcock was a little ahead of his time. But most of it, you had to use your imagination. Now it's out there. It's on there. It's on the internet. It's on your TV. It's on your radio. It's in your satellite radio. It's everywhere. So there is no imagination. So the lyrics are downright degrading. Yes, now he said the lyrics are not respectable for anyone. Stop, Red. That's when I was asking him to chime in. My cousin Gregory said, "Right, I know nothing about it, cousin." Jerry Lee Twinning Brown, one of our panelists from last week, says, "Thanks to the internet, more is out there. When we look at this generation, that's what they see. That's what they know. Old school versus new school, basically." You're right about that, Jerry. It starts at home.
We're gonna put an asterisk because we need to talk about the media influence and all
or
of this.
your daughter to this new era, we still as parents need to teach them how to respect the P, whether son or daughter. Shakira said, oh, this should have been a generational conversation.
Yes, Shakira, come on, boo, come on.
Next time, Shakira, Rachelle's Christopher, she says, what R&B female singers that you both can think of from back in the day that expressed themselves sexually and was known for over sexualizing lyrics? And I did just mention Betty Wright. Now listen, one of my favorite songs by Aretha is Dr. Feelgood. Listen, Aretha said, don't bring me no doctor to fill me up with all them pills. I got me a man named Dr. Feelgood, and he's that man makes me feel real good, right? Okay. Now listen.
FYI, a lot of them went over my head, just so y'all know.
So that song right there, that's old Aretha too. That wasn't new.
You had a reaction to that one. Did y'all see that? Did the people see that?
That's one of my favorite songs by Aretha. So yeah, but what it is not is graphic. I had to use my imagination to figure out what Aretha was talking about.
Right, that which is why a lot of it went over my head, along with some.
Rachelle said, "Wow, them song lyrics, I can't lie like that song too." Thank you, Rachelle. Thank you.
But I think your point about graphic, which I was using the term explicitness, I want us to hold the media accountable for some of this, for a lot of this. Listen, y'all don't think WAP just popped up? I mean,
no,
they were
WAP didn't pop up.
Right, but what I'm saying is,
pop up.
There were writers and producers. There were songs that don't get played. Only the edited radio version used to get played. Now that doesn't even exist.
Okay, so we know WAP didn't just pop up because our former president.
Oh, you gonna say it?
You know, we know WAP didn't just pop up because really he invented WAP. If you think about it, we heard him say it on the video, right?
I'm not gonna play with you.
Okay, yeah. Listen, y'all.
Pull it back.
Listen, I'm tired tonight, so ain't no telling what y'all get ready to get. But
pull it back.
Okay, I'm just saying we
heard
him say it, right? And so really, WAP is nothing more than what this president said that he do to women on a regular basis.
And my point is, the producers picked up on it and made a song about it. So I want to hold the media, before I get my friend up out, hold the media accountable, because again, they went from letting Lucy and Ricky not be in the same bed. What was the first show where they were actually in the same bed and y'all even saw that they slept together? I don't even know. We couldn't even do that.
I think the Brady Bunch, by the Brady Bunch, I think they were finally sleeping in the same bed.
So what was that, 20 years?
Oh, that's been longer than that.
No, between I Love Lucy.
Oh, Lucy and possibly.
Somebody Google that for us. And then we get to soap operas, which I don't know what the first one was. I was a CBS kind of girl. So, you know, they did all kind of stuff. And now you don't even have sheets covering up anything.
Yeah. Well, and soap operas were daytime, and where we were as children were supposed to be in school or too young to understand what our folks was watching, you know. And so As the World Turned, Guiding Light, One Life to Live, Days of Our Lives, it can go on, Another World, Young and the Restless. Okay, I'ma stop. Right? So we know that, and this, I want y'all to know, this is still a real conversation, because since you brought up the media, and I wasn't going to do this because I don't want to sound like I'm blaming the media, but I think it's important for us to know that we can go back to that other piece we were talking about with what happens to men when they are accused, and how the media takes it and run with it. And so this article, and the article, y'all, says, let me give y'all the name of this article. Any four Black men will do: rape, race, and the ultimate scapegoat. Any four Black men will do: rape, race, and the ultimate scapegoat. And it's by Tracy Owens Patton, Julie Snyder Yulee. And if you choose to get into Google Scholar, go to Google Scholar, you can find the article. Actually, and I shouldn't just say it's article, it's a journal article, it's researched article. I think it's really worth reading. But one of the things they do hit on is the idea of the media. And they say the tendency for oversimplified news stories feeds the reluctance to move beyond the stereotype portrayals, which continue to feed the cycle of marginalization of Black men and white women. And when they say white women, they're talking about that context of those stereotypes that Black men are interested and therefore rape white women. And we know that to be true when we think about how the media oftentimes, will talk about the race of an individual, but they won't talk about their character. And
Right.
so they often oversimplify it, and that's oftentimes what we see happening in the media when it's concerning these two issues here, whether it's the Me Too movement, Black men, and even the whole WAP thing, how that piece has really
What
been
have Black men been saying about
oversimplified.
WAP? What the Black men say about WAP? What the white
Well,
men say about WAP? Do we know?
Well, we know that, well, behind closed doors, a lot of them are probably saying a whole bunch of everything, but publicly, including those that consider themselves evangelical conservatives,
Got
uh,
it. Was.
because I mean, think about it. You had one that was just let go of from the college, and because of the role that he was serving
Let's
there.
talk about Matt Gaetz.
Okay, we will, but I want to talk about this guy, since you brought it up. This conservative, you said, who's talking about it? Remember the guy that was just let go of from the prestigious Christian university, Jerry Falwell's son, I believe it was. So, that they found out was having all these different folks coming in and out of the bedroom and all this stuff. So you asked, what are they talking about?
I missed the
trying to
news.
tell
I
you.
know that.
Okay, so I'm trying to tell you what they're talking about. But then publicly their mouth is saying something else, which is, oh my God, how dare they? What is this world coming to? So that's the issue I have with the presence, the bigger voices, those voices in the conservative movement who are trying to control this narrative of WAP, just like they're also controlling the narrative of the Me Too movement and not allowing the cultural context to have any say in this conversation. So that's why we're doing this tonight. Now, go ahead. If you want to talk about Matt Gaetz, I'm going to go ahead and let you talk about your little Florida House representative dude.
Yeah, you in Florida too. We going to 7 to 7:30 tonight. Did we say?
Well, it looks like 7:30 because it's 6:55.
So I'm at 7:15 because the baby's got to eat tonight. So no, but I just so I only half get the news, but the stuff I do get, I'm like, what I want to bring up about this particular situation is the way it unfolded in the media.
Yeah.
So Representative Matt Gaetz, for those of you who do not know, who, if I'm not mistaken, is from Pasco. I'm gonna verify that while I'm on the phone, while I'm talking to you all, because I want y'all to know for sure. He went through he was accused of sexual violation, and as the story got,
and of underage girls, let's be very specific.
Right, of underage girls, it eventually turned into sex trafficking. In his attempt to No, he's from Hollywood. So excuse me, Pasco. In his attempt to detract from what he had done, he starts saying that people are he is the victim, he and his father, of some espionage and all kind. Bruh, you just made up a whole other story. This is not Olivia Pope, and we are not on what's the show we had with Olivia Pope and president? What was the
I
show?
I don't know. I never watched it.
Okay, Grey's Anatomy. Y'all put it in the comments. Y'all know the show.
It wasn't Grey's Anatomy.
No, it was when it came off after Grey's Anatomy. Somebody, y'all help me. You know who I'm talking about. Y'all tell people. So the point though there is the extreme how far people will go to hide their stuff and throw everybody else under the scandal. Thank you, love. Scandal. Thank you. Y'all knew it. Y'all just couldn't figure out where I was going with it.
Yeah, Lisa Friday said scandal too.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Jerry. The extent that people go, and I want to bring it back to the conversation that we're having, is one of the things that you said. We all should have the same level of credibility, just no matter our gender or our race, in both regards, either if we are making accusations or if we are being accused. And I think, to me, this conversation really does get to the complexity of the situation. I mean, overall, yeah, it's a kind of tantalizing subject, but the reality of what it uncovers is how explicit, how graphic is too graphic, how carefree can you be with your accusations, who has the ultimate say, and where ultimately, Rebecca, what is the equity and how things are handled? You know, one of the things that I really appreciated about our panel last week was Amanda, who brought this this legal expertise and angle and perspective. And some of the things that she said, I was like, I hadn't even thought about it that way, you know, but autonomy isn't the same as consent. But if you are a woman, and shouldn't you have the same agency and autonomy over your body? But because there is, to me, where Me Too and WAP sort of intersect is the treatment of the intersection of sexism and racism. That's it. That ain't it, really it, but that's all I got for you.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really good what you did just bring to the forefront of this conversation. That we, as I told you all at the beginning, we are not, we're not trying to give you all the answers, because we really don't have all the answers. You know, if you start to look into different individual situations, you will find that, you know, it's different for people. The problem becomes that because it is different, that too often the rules for Black men and Black women are different than the rules for white men and white women. So, for example, WAP is a big conversation right now. And I'm wondering if it's because there were two women of color on a primetime show expressing themselves sexually, when, of course, the Black female form, body form, has not been considered beautiful, right? Right? I'm just saying, that's for them. Because I mean, now don't get me wrong. I know people that love the Black body, but what I'm saying, in our society, Black women's bodies have been depicted as oversexed and not beautiful.
Yes, yes.
So if you look at old images of even Black enslaved women that were considered mammies, that had to breastfeed white babies, that's what they were used for. It was always used for something. And so when you think about, let's think about the Victoria's Secret Remember they every year they had their little Victoria's Secret event that came on television, and the
Air
women
Sports
were walking
Illustrated went
around.
through the mission.
Yeah,
Let's
they
talk
were
about
walking around in their angel bra and all that kind of stuff, and it was all just cute, right? It was all cute, and they had real cute music to it. They did have some good music to it typically, but what I'm saying is the difference is that was acceptable because you had most of those models were white women.
Yes,
And
yes,
for
yes.
those of them that weren't white women, they had what is considered typically a white woman's form.
Well, let's talk about Tyra. Let's talk about how she was an anomaly and how she's risen in the industry despite all of those things. I mean, I think sometimes Elaine Winterworth wrote this, and I thought it was very poignant. She wrote this after the Meghan Markle interview with Oprah, and she said, you know, we celebrate the people that break through the ceiling, but we don't think about the cuts and bruises that result from breaking through. And I think that what this conversation really is about, at the end of the day, you don't have to agree with Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion's lyrics, right? But you have to give them to the space that in this time, this level of graphicness and explicitness is where folks are. And if by some means it happens to empower some folks and make them feel good, then that is appropriate for the people that it works for.
That's their choice. Yeah.
What we definitely don't have to do is tear them down. We don't have to listen to it. We don't have to buy it. But what we shouldn't be doing is damaging their reputation if we disagree with them, because they have the right to express it in the way, and people are paying for it.
Yes, they are.
So that's all I'm gonna say about that.
That might be the bigger problem, the capitalism piece, but that's another conversation. Let me read some of these comments. Darlene said, first Darlene said, dirty old Prince.
Darlene, we know.
Darlene said, even kissing on TV was taboo. That's absolutely right. She said, Matt Gates, I think he's from Panama City. Dorothea, one of our panelists from last week that brought it and brought her forth. She brought a whole perspective to us. It has always been about white male control of female bodies. We have been objectified forever. Right. Darlene said Gates hiding behind his money, the Republican Party and the Republican women. And I'm not even going to go into that whole thing that can become a whole political conversation tonight. We'll say that for another day. Dorothea said, Hottest Venus was a great example of white males who completely lusted after these women, but abused them, lusted after these women, but abused them because they were not the idea of female beauty. Now said, we as Black people have always been viewed as more sexual. I must say that I have never thought of the big butts and big lips as not being acceptable. Thank you now for loving us, big, bold women, bodacious women. It's where society is today. But the reality is now that if I'm going to go down this little path just for a brief moment, and I promise I'm gonna circle back to where we were. But now for Black women, I can tell you how difficult it has been for us, even when we go into the stores and try to buy clothes that fit our female shape. And so Nelly did this thing for us. He created these jeans called apple bottom jeans, right? That's because we can't go in the stores typically and find stuff that fit our hips and our butts. Now, what these folks are doing now with all these injections, all that extra stuff they're doing, that's on them. I ain't got nothing to say about that. But before we were doing injections and all that other stuff, it was very difficult for Black women to go into stores and buy something off the shelf and or off the rack. Now, listen, I can tell you because I remember when I was a size 1, 3, and 4, and now I'm a whole nother kind of size. And I can tell you how difficult it is from then when I used to just go into it, didn't have to try it on. It's a size 1 or 3 and off, and I went on home. Now I'm in the dressing room struggling.
But I want to add this because I think that point is valid. I also want to, there's another aspect of this. Serena Williams talks openly about one of her visions, particularly for her daughter, now is that she does that the sport of tennis is more equitable.
Yeah.
Even she actually was rejected more than Venus because Venus had what they considered to be a tennis shape.
Mm-hmm.
And just in appearance, people did not take her seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's how we kind of think about the whole idea of what WAP is and how would it have been acceptable. Because I remember Madonna being on stage on that bed. I can't remember who she was on. I have to go back and look, but that was a long time ago. And yeah, she got a little grief from it, but I don't remember, I don't remember the evangelicals in the church and the whole Republican Party having an issue with it as much. There was some buzz about it, some conversation about it, and all that. But what we're saying to you all tonight as we get ready to bring this conversation to a close is that Me Too movement is a place where women, it's actually a voice, it's actually an opportunity for women to give voice to their experiences and hopefully now to be heard. And on the other hand, WAP is also providing for some women that same opportunity. Both of these entities, the movement and the era, are giving women an opportunity to say, we are tired of the patriarchy traditionalism. We are tired of not being respected. And we are tired of the inequities that permeate our society. So, can they coexist? I don't think we can answer that question yet. I think maybe 20 years from now, somebody, or and maybe a little sooner, but at some point, somebody will look at, and there'll be some research, I'm sure. Somebody will explore how the Me Too movement and the WAP era functioned or coexisted, or how they both empowered women through a different set of dynamics or lens. I mean, and that's what it is. So, some women can't vibe with Me Too and they vibing with WAP. Some women can't vibe with WAP and they go, Me Too is how I tell my story. That's how they feel. And so I think that that's where I end up on this, I guess, this continuum tonight, on this spectrum or what have you. I really think that they can coexist, but we have to find a way to understand how they each have their or I guess productive to our society. So y'all comment now. Let me know what you think. For those of you who've been listening, and especially if you came back, I want to know.
Yes.
Do you think they can coexist? The Me Too movement and WAP era, can they coexist?
I do want to hear that. I also want to say, I think one of the results, one of the things that we attempt to do with Tuesday Together Talk is to bring provocative, stimulating conversation that doesn't stop when we end the live, right? And that is what's so exciting about this is bringing different perspectives on subjects that we sort of are getting meshed in with a new lens. So we told people about we were planning some anniversary stuff, right?
Yeah, you have you talking about that, Carrie. But one of the things that we will do for our first year, I'm sorry, y'all, my throat. Carrie done got me all worked up and everything, got me talking about.
Y'all see who got who worked up, see?
So for our first year, for Tuesday Together Talk, first year anniversary, which will happen in July. I've talked about this before. we will start Tuesday Together Talk Take Two. And that'll be a group that I want you all to even already start thinking about if you want to be a part of it. But it's where we will come and have a conversation after the conversation. It won't necessarily be live, but it's where you can express your thoughts and your opinions and, maybe answer a question that has been presented within the conversation or even give conversation ideas. We'll also have some other things that I'm not even, I want to get to the anniversary, y'all, but there'll be some other exciting opportunities embedded in Tuesday Together Talk Take Two.
But
And
you know where I'm trying to get the people to go is that we're talking about voting for your favorite episode. So I'm just saying.
oh, that's what you want to do. Vote for your
Yes.
favorite episode. Okay.
Yeah, so you all go back and listen. You want to hear some more of this? What conversations, what panelists do you
Yeah.
want us to bring back? Listen, I said us because I just inserted myself in all of this.
Yeah.
So yes, I think I agree. I do think they can coexist. I think it is a much bigger conversation. I think the umbrella of feminism and the feminist movement is fraught with challenges.
Mhm.
And it is just, I think one of the things you said, it will be in retrospect that we will look and say, okay, that was the point, that was the contribution at that point in time.
Yeah. I like Keisha's comment. Now, she's the only one that has responded thus
Which
far to the
Keisha?
question. Keisha, Champagne, I think is how you might say it. If I'm wrong, Keisha,
Oh,
please forgive me. Um, she said, absolutely coexist. Hashtag stop policing Black women's bodies. Yes.
go Keisha. We're gonna start using that hashtag. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, love. Thank you.
So
Yeah.
thank you for that comment. But I appreciate all of you all for just tuning in for tonight. Tonight probably went a little different than either Carrie and I both thought it was going to go. We were going to be reserved and all prim
Yeah,
and proper.
we got wrapped up.
But I think it was important for us to get, this is a real conversation. So we got to keep it real. And that's what Tuesday Together Talk is really about. We come and have this conversation in this space to talk about things that are happening in our society. And I agree with Keisha. Stop policing Black women's bodies. Stop policing Black people's words and our interactions, our culture. Stop it. Just stop it. We have an opportunity to share with one another. And yes, I engage voices from different cultures on Tuesday Together Talk because I think it's important that we do so. You all understand that Bridge is all about reconciliation, but one of the ways we get reconciled is first we have to understand Black culture. We have to understand other cultures and start having real conversations. Janelle says, too many thoughts on my mind on this topic. Janelle, I wish you would just give us one of those thoughts on your mind.
Come on now, come on. Tell us what you're thinking.
Janelle was our one of our guest panelists a couple of weeks ago. And if you missed her conversation, you better tune in. If you need some encouragement, some real talk, go back and find the video. Okay.
I'm just saying that's enough to go back and vote for.
Okay.
Really.
So I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight for Can the Me Too Movement and WAP Era Coexist? If you have more comments, please feel free to send me a message. I love reading your messages after the show, and I do respond back. Some of you express yourself so well, and you give me great ideas for additional conversation. So don't think that your comments go unnoticed. I do appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. Carrie, do you have any other comments before I close this thing out?
Just keep it going. Encourage people, thank people. I always love being here. We're working on some other things.
Yes. All right, y'all. So thank you all again for tuning in to Tuesday Together Talk. I'm Reverend Rebecca Burrow, my guest conversationalist, Carrie Hepburn Brown, who is the CEO and founder of Onyx Strategic Consulting. I am the CEO and founder of Building Reconciliation, Inclusion, Diversity, and Gender Equity. You can find me at www.reconciliationandequity.com, or you can find us on Facebook. Make sure you like and follow us on Facebook at Reconciliation and Equity, also on Instagram at Reconciliation and Equity. And y'all would be so proud of me because last week I actually added last week's conversation is on YouTube, okay? And this one will go on YouTube also at Reconciliation and Equity. We try to keep it consistent for you. So next week, I have another great conversationalist coming. Next week, since we done talked about a lot of this stuff, we're gonna be kind next week. And next week, Julia James and I will talk about the sacredness of kindness, but we're also going to talk about the practice of listening and how those two things are very sacred, especially in this culture and this climate that we're currently living in. How too often we're not listening to one another. We're not listening. We're not listening, and that's where we are right now in this society. And so Julia and I will have a conversation a week after that. I have Jabbar Edmonds. Jabbar, if you live in St. Pete, you know Jabbar. This brother is real talk. If you are thinking that we were above and beyond tonight, then get ready for Jabbar, because he is one that's definitely going to keep it real. Jabbar is a young man that understands the streets, but he also understands politics. He's doing some real work in the community that is really impacting in a positive way, impacting Pinellas County. And so that will be on the 27th of April. Make sure that you come back for that conversation with Jabbar. And then we move into May. But in the meantime, God bless you all. Thank you all once again for tuning in. Listen, y'all need to know I appreciate you so much for hanging out with me every Tuesday night, no matter what. I do appreciate you all. Lo, I don't think Lo has mixed maybe just 1 week that I know of. Lo, Karen, Darlene, some of the ones that come back, Rachelle comes back, Lisa has been here often, now comes back on a regular basis. My cousin Gregory, he's in and out, he visits, but there are so many that continue to come back. Jerry comes back. There's so many, and I'm glad to see that some of our panelists have come back from last week. So thank you all so much. I hope I didn't forget anybody. That's what the danger is in giving names, is that you might forget somebody. So if I forgot you, message me and I'll make sure I say your name next week. How about that? I love you all much. See you next week. Good night, everybody.